Hello, happy Wednesday. I don't know why I can never get this adjusted before I start. Okay. Hi, today we're talking about composition and layout. I'm gonna try really hard not to go off on tangents and make this video 4 hours long, but I'll warn you right now, composition and layout is my favorite piece of the puzzle. It's my favorite topic about taking photos, and so I'm really excited to talk about this. Monday was a little bit straightforward because the pieces of an effective photo are pretty straightforward, and then yesterday talking about lighting, that was pretty straightforward. Today is not as straightforward. There are more pieces to this puzzle, and everyone's going to be at a different stage or at a different level of comfort, and so I encourage you to try these things at your own pace, and don't get stressed out or overwhelmed. You don't have to do everything at once. I started with, just taking a photo of just my hand and nothing else in the picture, and just tried to tackle lighting first, and then I moved on and progressed. So, okay, there are 8 or 9 things I want to go over real quick. And then I also want to touch on color one more time. We talked about it a little bit yesterday when we were talking about lighting. But I wanted to get a little bit more in depth because composition has a lot to do with color. So with how people perceive color. Composition is speaking to people's subconscious minds, which sounds cheesy and weird, but it's true and it works. You're trying to create an environment that people want to look at for longer than just a second. You want to give people's eyes something to do. And understanding how people's eyes travel through a photo can kind of help you know how to lay it out to keep people there longer. Photos especially. Oh, stop. Thank you, Kim. I didn't used to have long nails. And tomorrow when we talk about nail health and application and stuff, I'll share some of the things that I've been doing to help my nails grow longer. Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Okay, so I would start with having your product be front and center. So don't get crazy with props. Just, so when I was taking photos of my nail polish, I like putting my sleeve up because I don't think this is super cute. I like to cover it up. So I would just do, this pose. There's a sleeve. And this pinky always tucks under that one. So I always have to fix it manually. And I just take a photo of this. This is front and center, white background. This is the photo. Really simple. And that, is a very direct approach. People look at the photo and they know what they're looking at, and it's pretty simple. That's where I would start. And then once you're comfortable with that, then you can start adding other elements to your pictures, adding other props and things. The other thing to be aware of, and this is another thing that speaks to people's subconscious, is the angle at which you're going to take the photo. So for example, if a store wants you to buy a beautiful glass salad bowl, they're not going to show a picture of the salad bowl sitting on the shelf at the store. Which when you go to get the salad bowl, that is the thing that you would see. But that's not how they want to advertise it. They're gonna show, hello everybody, good morning. Or afternoon if you're on the East Coast. They're gonna show the salad bowl up on a shelf in a beautiful kitchen. And people are gonna look at that photo and they're gonna think, that salad bowl is the first step to me having a beautiful kitchen. It's not true, but it's what the subconscious mind gathers from looking at the picture. Or they're gonna show the salad bowl on a beautifully set table, and there's gonna be a beautiful salad in the bowl, and people are gonna look at that photo and think, man, if I had that bowl, I would probably make better food choices. Again, it's not true, but it's what the subconscious mind thinks. And they're showing the bowl at the angle that you would observe that situation as if you were standing there. So when they put the bowl up on the shelf, the photo is taken from the angle as though you're standing on the floor looking up towards the bowl. It's not straight on, it's not down, it's at an angle. If they're taking a picture of the bowl on the table, they're taking it at the angle as if you were standing next to the table looking down at the bowl. And that's a thing that happens subconsciously in your mind where you feel like you're there. So that's why I chose to take my product photos straight down, because when I look at my product, I'm always looking at it straight down. So if you're whatever your product is, think about how people perceive it. If you sell makeup, think about how people look at their makeup when they're standing at their bathroom counter. That's like a 45-degree angle. So the angle from your camera to the product will be more of a 45-degree angle. Is this making sense? Most of what happens in composition happens subconsciously. And it's super fascinating, and I'm gonna totally geek out today. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. Okay, the next thing you want to think about, another way to use product photos is to add text. So when you're taking a photo, think about the negative space in the picture. And we're going to talk a little bit about the rule of thirds also, which plays into this. I'll take some pictures, and I'm going to post a lot of examples today on the wall of these different things. But a negative space picture would be like, so let's say I'm over here, and this is like the sky, and it's just an overcast sky. I'll probably be able to take that example outside. So then I can put words over here, right? I left negative space, I left room for words. So if you're doing like a sale, you can take a photo and then crop it so that there's extra space where you can add text. 30% off, blah, 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 blah. Or, I hope you're having a great day if you're just trying to use it for like a personal brand situation. It works every time too. I'm guilty for buying something exactly, it works. And it's fascinating how the subconscious mind has that much control over us, because when I go to the store and see the bowl sitting on the shelf, I still want it because I remember what it's capable of looking like. And that's our job at taking product photos, is to show people the possibilities, right? Because most of the time the product itself, when it arrives, is in a box or a package, or it's not super attractive, but they're still excited to get it because in their mind they are remembering that beautiful photo that you showed them. Okay, we talked about negative space. Oh, let's talk about the rule of odds. This is a rule that I learned when I was taking oil painting classes. To make a photo more interesting or an image more interesting, you want to think about odd numbers. So if you're I was painting flowers, and I had 4 flowers, and my art teacher was like, no, you need 5 flowers or 3 flowers, because if you give people even numbers, their subconscious mind pairs things up, and then the picture looks boring. If you give people odd numbers, their mind can't quite pair it up, and then they spend more time looking at it and it becomes more interesting. So odd numbers is a great rule. If you're adding props to your photo, don't add 2 props unless your product is the 3rd prop, if that makes sense. So try to, when you're looking at your layout, try to pair things up. And if you can pair things up, then add 1 more thing or take something away. Create an odd number environment so that people spend more time looking at the photo because it's more interesting. And then the rule of thirds is if you're trying to take a more interesting photo and you don't want your product to be like front and center, divide the screen, the picture into thirds. So thirds going this way and thirds going this way, and then place the product somewhere on that grid where the lines cross. So in one of these 4 areas, if that makes sense. Because then people's eyes are going to have to travel around the picture to find the product. Now, if you're going to use that tactic, it's important that people understand what they're supposed to be drawn to subconsciously. So you want that object, that product, to be crystal clear, and maybe the rest of the picture is a little out of focus. Does that make sense? That's the rule of thirds. I don't often use that rule in my product photos because it's such a closely cropped situation. I'm always very close up. I go more for the centering it to show people what they're supposed to be looking at. But I also focus on the product and blur the background. And that that's something the camera will automatically do. You tell it where to focus. Different people's cameras have different settings. On my camera, I just tap the screen of when I'm in the phone app, I tap the screen over, like if I'm doing nail polish, I'll tap this finger and my camera will know that that's what we're focusing on, and the rest, things that are back farther, become a little bit blurry. Another rule for layout is, not a rule, guideline, is diagonals. So if you are placing your props in your photo, try not to place them in a line. Try to place them at angles. A lot of times if you look at my photos, there's something in this corner and there's something in this corner, and then my product is in the center in the front. And that makes people's eyes travel this direction, and then their eyes travel this direction, and they spend a lot of time looking at the picture because it's not, again, it's not boring. So you want odd numbers, and then you want them placed at diagonals to each other so that people's eyes travel around the photo and they spend more time looking at it. If you have 4 things in a row, they're subconsciously going to pair them up, their eyes are going to travel across, and then they're going to move on. So, do you just use your phone as your camera? Yes, Tiffany, I just use my phone. I have a fancy camera that I don't know how to use. I think I'll try to figure it out this year, but I just use my phone for my camera. Yeah. And we talked about angles and aerial view. So an aerial view is, again, just looking at something from up above. So in the light boxes, a lot of them have a cutout at the top, and you can put your phone shooting straight down. That's what I do, but it depends on what product you're photographing. So sometimes an aerial shot is challenging, and it's not the best choice depending on what the product is. So one example of an aerial shot that I could see it in my mind how I wanted it to look. I wanted to use my daughter's gumball machine because it was the exact same red as the product I was taking a picture of. So I wanted to use the gumball machine. And I sat the gumball machine in the light box and I was looking straight down. Well, you could only see the top. You couldn't see where you put the quarters in. You couldn't see the cute character of the gumball machine. And that was a head scratcher. It was like, how am I going to show this in an aerial view? So what I ended up doing is propping it at an angle, putting things under the bottom until it was tipped back just enough that you could see the front of the gumball machine, but it still looked like it was a straight down shot. So sometimes you have to play with people's perception. I'm gonna post a picture on the wall of a couple of examples of that, how you don't have to take a picture of the way things are necessarily. You can mess around with your layout and create a perception of how things are. And I know that's a little bit like out there, but it is something to think about. The thing with layout is that it takes patience, especially when you're using props. Because when you're taking a picture of people, you can, look at the composition of the photo and say, okay, you scoot in here and you lift your chin and you're blocking him, can you move? But when you're working with inanimate objects, you have to manually, do you guys hear that? That's my son's turtle. It's trying to dig through the floor. I don't know. Sorry, distracting. Anyway, I totally lost my train of thought. But, okay, inanimate objects. You have to adjust them over and over again until you're happy with how it looks. And that takes patience. And especially if you have an idea in your head of how you want it to look, then it's a little bit quicker of a process. But a lot of the time, I'm like, I don't know how I want it to look until I see it. So it's a lot of adjusting. Spacing is important. If you're doing the rule of thirds, where you have 3 objects in a photo, and you're using the rule of diagonals, where the things are at diagonal to each other, it's also important to think about spacing. So you want your product to be front and center, and the distance between the product and the object and the prop in this corner is going to be the same as the distance between the prop in this corner, and then the distance between each other needs to have balance. So it's a lot of adjusting and playing around and experimenting. And don't be afraid to try things and try different props. One of the things that I had trouble with is reflection. So like in my photos, I use coffee mugs full of coffee a lot because I like coffee. And the lights shining into the photo would reflect off of the liquid. And that's another thing where you kind of have to just move it around, experiment, switch the angle, and try different things. And I'm also probably too picky, so that might have been why it took so many extra shots. But it's important to find that balance between having it look really good, something you can be proud of, and obsessing over it and never being happy. You got to find the happy medium. So those are some of the composition guidelines that I like to use. And the other thing I wanted to talk about today is color. Making the color look accurate. I really think it's super important when you have a product where the color matters to communicate to the customers exactly what they're getting. We talked about it a little bit yesterday when we talked about lighting. Natural light is going to show the color accurately. And if you have something white in the photo, that is also going to show the color accurately for the most part, but it's not 100% rule. Do you guys remember, okay, raise your hand if you remember the dress. It was the dress that blew up the internet where some people saw it as white and gold and some people saw it as black and blue. You remember that dress? I saw it as black and blue and my husband saw it as white and gold. And it validated the fact that I believed that we saw colors differently. Because what color is this wall behind me? I'm not going to tell you what color I think it is. And, you know, we're on screen, so it might not look exactly the same to you. But I want to hear what you think this color is, because my husband and I see it completely different. And it's fascinating. So people see colors differently, and we have to do our best to help them get as much accuracy as we can. And then after that, you know, everybody's a little different. So if I've had people come to me before where they send me a picture, sage, okay? Gray, sage-ish, light green, mint gray, gray green, okay. My husband sees it as gray, like straight up gray, because when we were gonna paint this room, we're remodeling, it's not all the way done, but he was like, at our last house I had a blue wall and I loved it. It was like a robin's egg colored wall. I loved it, he hated it. So he was like, we're absolutely not gonna have any turquoise or blue or green. I can't live in those colors. And I was like, I understand, that's, yeah. He's like, I think I want gray. So I went to the paint store and I picked out, you know, gray colors that I liked so that we could decide together. And I grabbed this one. I was like, he's never gonna go for it because it's like a blue gray. It's like a turquoisey gray. And it's what he picked, and he thinks that it's gray. He doesn't see any blue or green in it at all. So we're both happy. We both got what we wanted, but we perceive colors differently. So creating an environment or creating a photo that is gonna give people the best odds of understanding the color is the extent of our goal, but we can't help everyone. I've had customers send me pictures of like clothes before. One lady sent me a picture of the dress that she was going to wear to her son's wedding, and she said, do you think that this nail polish color will match this dress? And I was like, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to recommend a color based on a picture that she took, because I don't have all the information about that photo. I don't know what kind of lighting she took the picture in. I don't believe that I have a clear understanding of what color that dress actually is. So for me to say that, yes, I think this nail polish is going to match it, I can't confidently do that. Sorry, I have to know if that, oh no, I thought it was maybe the kids' school. It's not. So what I do in that situation is I have my photos that I am confident in the fact that I use natural light. I have white references in the photo, and it's as accurate as I can possibly make it. And I send her the photo and I say, print this out and lay it next to the dress, because odds are her monitor isn't going to show her the thing that I took a picture of exactly the way that I took a picture of it. People's monitors are not hardly ever calibrated correctly. So people, you know, buy something based on what they see on their screen, and then they get it and they're disappointed because it's not what they thought. That's happened to me before. I'm sure it's happened to many of us when we buy things online. So I'm not willing to say, look at this picture and then you can decide if it matches. But if they print it out, the printer knows the colors. The printer will print it out accurately, and then they can lay it next to the thing they're trying to match and make the decision for themselves. So I've created, to the best of my ability, true colors in my photos. There's this concept that, what is it called? Chromatic adaptation, which is the idea that without having all of the information about a picture, you can't always know exactly what you're looking at. So for an example, if I'm in a room, this example was in an article I read a little while back. If I'm in a room and there's a red book sitting on a table and there's a blue light shining on the book is going to look purple. But since I'm in the room with the book and my brain has soaked up all of the information about what I'm seeing, I know that the book is red, right? But if I take a picture of the book and send it to my friend and say, what color do you think this book is? She's going to say it's purple. Because it's a blue light shining on a red object, it's going to look purple. So people can't look at what we're trying to show them and have all of the information to understand what they're looking at. Oh, necessarily. So our job is to create an environment where there's not any guesswork, where it's as true as we can make it, and then they can trust that we're showing them the colors correctly. That's why it's important to have something white in your photo, because white is a baseline to help people understand colors. People's brains will automatically edit what they're seeing based on the knowledge that this part of the picture is white. Does that make sense? That's another reason why it's important to try not to use filters. They're fun and they make things beautiful, but they also edit the color of a photo. So I occasionally use one filter on Instagram to help brighten the background and make it look whiter. And you have the option to go from 0 to 100 on those filters. I always am 20 or below because I don't want to alter the picture really. I want to just brighten the background. So be very careful with filters if you're advertising a product where color is important, because the filter will change the color. I think those are all of my topics. Did I forget something? Does anybody have any questions about any of this? Let me scroll back and see if I missed any questions. Oh, thank you, Lenny. They are my real nails. I just changed them yesterday for a party. I did a live demo of changing my nails, but then tomorrow I'm going to change them again for you guys and show you my application techniques and things. So they're getting a workout this week. We'll talk about how to grow them out, because my nails have not always been this long. Our color street has a lot to do with it, but also taking good care of them. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Any questions about composition or layout or any of the crazy things that I talked about your subconscious mind, how it controls you? I feel like there was one more. Let me grab my notes. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I'm going to show you guys a few photos about perception. Oh, okay. So my light box came with two backgrounds. One of them is white and one of them is light gray. And so I've experimented a little bit with when you take a picture of something on the light gray background and versus when you take a picture of something on the white background. If there's nothing white on the light gray background, it makes me think that the background is white, which then changes the colors in the objects in the photo. Does that make sense? That's why we use a white background or have something white in the photo, so that you have a clear perception of the colors in the photo. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you for hanging out today. And if you're watching the replay and you have a question, I will get back to you if you comment. And tomorrow is the last day of the boot camp, where we're going to be talking about topics specifically pertaining to color street photos and application techniques to make sure you get a good photo. And anyone is welcome to join. I know some people have been adding their customers to this group. And so you're welcome. Anyone is welcome to be part of this group. If your customers have questions about application, I'm going to go over all of the things, different categories of like glitter, solids. They all have different techniques for how I apply them, and I wore them all. So we will be talking about that tomorrow. Thank you. My light box is 20 inches, but there's 16-inch ones and there's 24-inch ones, and then you can build your own. It's bigger than necessary because I always end up cropping, which we didn't talk about cropping. Oh, that was the thing. Okay, when I'm taking a photo, I don't worry about it being centered in the moment. I more look at spacing between my product and the props, and I try to be aware of the fact that I'm going to make it into a square. So I kind of have to mentally make sure everything's fitting in the frame. But, you know, the picture itself is like really long and skinny, and I'm only going to use this much of it. So that's where cropping comes in. You don't have to make your layout perfect inside the space that you're taking the picture. Just be aware of what shape you want to crop it to, what the outcome is, and then you can crop it accordingly. Where did you get all your rings? I got them from Amazon. They are garbage. They turned my fingers green. I'm allergic to one of the metals in cheap costume jewelry, and they were really fun to play with, but they were, and they photographed well. But for everyday wear, I don't wear them. I can't. So Amazon sells like bulk. You can buy costume jewelry in bulk, and you just get like a mismatch. It was really fun to go through them and see all the different colors and things. So, but yeah, I got them from Amazon. So, all right, I'm gonna let you go, and I'm gonna post some more content today with some examples of some of the things we talked about. I hope it made sense. I hope I didn't ramble too much. It's something that I get really excited about, and it's really fascinating to me. So, yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.